Let's now switch gears to talk about rights, but focusing on women and the rights of young people. Being joined in the program by the Executive Director, Advocate for Health and Rights of Women and Youths Initiative, Mr. Emmanuel Etim, joins us right here in our Lagos studio. Mr. Etim, thank you so much for coming on the program. So tell us what you do. Let's begin from there so we can contextualize.
Okay, so what I do, I work with an organization that focuses on supporting the rights of women and youth. We work around health rights. When you look at the issues surrounding gender-based violence and creating awareness and also holding conferences to ensure that women have access to information that can upscale their life from where they are and where they need to be.
So we just spoke to our guest that got literally everybody emotional here. And when we look through the stories, we could pick a few things. One of the things is the sad story of our health sector, and then the negligence. And then if somebody like that comes to you and said, this is how I got here in the first place. Misdiagnosis on one hand, because you're talking about health here.
Yeah.
On the other hand, that word rejecting someone for trying to avoid the tally of deaths on your facility, how do you advance that kind of, how do you prosecute that kind of case?
I mean, I was engaging with her earlier backstage, and her story is so touching. Even hearing it, I mean, we live in a world where people don't even know their rights, right? So it even starts from a place of awareness, where take it out to schools, to organizations, for people to even know their rights. And it's a very long rope, because when you look at rights, even the workplace you have, where you are, there are rights that are accrued to you, just even working there. And taking it back to the health sector, there are a lot of rights, which is why some of the programs we're doing is to ensure that, people know these rights and they know how to demand for their rights, especially when it has to do with your health. So you can imagine a system where you take someone to the hospital and they will expect that they don't want to increase their death rate, so they don't attend to you. And there are laws in Nigeria that, protect citizens to ensure that you can demand for your right, in cases like this.
So was her right trampled upon by that rejection? And this, by the way, a lot of Nigerians, this is the same WhatsApp group that we are. A lot of Nigerians, like every family can tell you the story of the experience at a hospital or public facility. Was her right trampled upon? It's one thing to know your right and demand for it, right? It's another thing for them to give you that right. All that one is in Constitution. I beg, come on for here. So was it trampled upon? But how do you really demand for your right and get what rightfully belongs to you?
So, I mean, yes, her right was trampled upon, I would say, because first and foremost, that was a wrong diagnosis. And, it took a while, before they now had to find out. And even the time they took her to the hospital. So there are a lot of things that we might be looking into in her case, because what time did they arrive at the hospital, and people need to be aware that you don't wait till your case becomes very critical before you go to the hospital. So you need to seek medical care. And what are the facilities that are available? For instance, I know that Lagos State government, they have some form of HMO that is very subsidized for people that can't really afford the high-end ones, right? So people need to start looking at accessing these things and how they can access them, because really healthcare is supposed to be accessible for everybody, irrespective of your race, gender, and your sexuality.
So now that we've exhausted that part, I'm interested in your own story, and for good reason, because in this patriarchal society that we find ourselves in, it's not often that you find a he for she, not just any he for she, but a he for she who is actively working in the gender rights space. So what's your story? Why are you an active he for she?
Well, my story, I mean, everybody has a story. So I grew up in having an experience where, my dad and my mom, my mom went through terrible stages of gender-based violence, and she was a staff of, she was a civil servant, and, I literally saw several times where my dad would abuse her, and, she lost her life after many years, and And you know, the issues of gender-based violence has a lot of impact on women and youth, right? But statistics and based on the work that we do, we see that women are more outspoken, you know, when it has to do with issues of gender-based violence. They are the ones that are quicker to report these issues. So that's why you see that data shows that women go through gender-based violence more. And yes, I agree that women go through, just like you said, because of the society that we find ourselves. There are a lot of stereotypes, you know, and gender-based violence doesn't just happen when a man beats a woman, right? Even social online bullying itself, workplace gender-based violence, you know, not giving women opportunities when they deserve it and when they have earned it, right? So yes, my story came from that. So it's from all of these experiences that I saw growing up as a young boy that I decided to make a difference, to say, you know what, let us stop this, and you know, trying to ensure that because I recognize that there was not enough information, right? Because even the few times I had spoken with my mom and say, why are you still in this marriage? She'll be like, if I leave this marriage, you guys would suffer, right? You know, by the time another woman will come in, the cycle will just keep going on and on and on. And she stayed on through all of that and gave her life for us to ensure that we had a better life today. And you know, these stories are not being heard, these stories are not being told. The work that women put, you know, to ensure that even their families have food on the table, you know, these days. And you know, the community would think a man should be the one providing. But if you look at it now, I'm sorry to say, women provide more these days than actually, you know, the provisions that come from men. So all of these issues are the issues that we're working to address through our work.
Fantastic work. And I'm tempted to ask, first, again, some of people who perpetrate abuse, yes, they know, but maybe it's something that was learned, and they just think this is how to speak to a woman because they probably within their friends or from their parents or the society just nudges them in that direction. Speak to a woman like this, you have to trample on her so that she'll respect you. I don't know if you've ever thought, let me reconcile with my father, forgive him, or have a conversation with him that, do you know how to do this better? I don't know if that's something you ever confronted. But speaking society-wide now, because the work you're doing is to try to reduce the impact of a bigger problem. So have you thought of how to even go deeper into this problem? So we're churning out men who respect women more, men who are able to be he for she's like yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you. One of the things we do in our organization is, you know, we really amplify the bystander syndrome, talk about the bystander syndrome, because we realize that even when men gather, when they're having a drink or something, you know, what are kind of conversations that they have, you know, and we organize conferences to create awareness, and we bring women and men together, you know, to let them understand that this is how to go, right? And we are really big on modeling, right? Men becoming positive role models to even their children, you know, and all of these things, because people learn these things. I personally decided, I'm married, I have a child, but I personally decided to be more, you know, disciplined in that area. I mean, there are instances where you may have, you know, maybe you may feel like, okay, you should raise your hand, but you know that, no, that is not the right thing to do because I have the right information. And from my own personal experiences, you know, and yes, about my dad, yes, we've been having these conversations, and he's now more aware that, okay, this is not the right way, this was not the best thing that I did, you know, at that time. So yeah, so we keep creating this information and creating opportunities for conversations and education. Awareness is one of the biggest things that men can do to speak to their boys. You know, there is no, let's dismantle gender roles, right? You know, when you start thinking that a girl is the one that's supposed to clear the table, wash the dishes, allow your children to have access to all kind of information because it will be useful to them as they grow up.
There's a drive in this generation that is both positive and negative. There's a drive to succeed, but how to succeed is also questionable. There's also the part of understanding consequence, which personally sometimes I weigh before I give you a responsibility, because if you don't understand consequence, even when you fail at doing what you're supposed to do, you don't even understand the consequence of what you've done. What are you doing in Daru as far as the male gender specifically is concerned in helping them shape culture? Because all we see is very worrying. So we're complaining about the attitude of some of these Gen Zs. So when Gen Zs become parents, do the maths.
Yeah. So mentorship is one of the things that we also run. We mentor young people. You know, we have mentors that have, people that have gone ahead of them, and we pair them with these people, through 3 to 6 weeks and months program that help to, them to see a positive lifestyle, through these mentorship programs. And we have people from universities, especially those that are about leaving universities and secondary schools, that plug into our mentorship program. And through these programs, they're able to learn, how to navigate through life.
Almost, thank you so much. What you're doing is fundamental. Is very, very fundamental, because at the end of the day, the people you're trying to shape and defend, some will end up in government, some will end up in private companies and lead organizations, and they will lead from their own worldview. Emmanuel Etim is Executive Director, Advocate for Health and Rights of Women and Youths Initiative. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
All right, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll find out what you're saying on X. Join us again.